Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Reinforcement with Vic Williams. Man, so much has been going on since our last podcast, and I am so excited to talk about the experience and our guest today. In the last few months, I've met some incredible people that have really become part of like a family to me. And we've been working on a movie, a human trafficking movie. And what makes this movie different than any other human trafficking movie? Well, it's a movie that when you see the victim starts to fight back. And that's the one thing that I love about this movie. You know, we're at a time right now where women are starting to fight for their rights and things that are happening in Iran and around the country, around the world. And what I love about this movie is a woman who was trafficked and brutalized. And, you know, although, yeah, revenge is not what we really want, but I don't think anybody's going to be upset with some really horrible guys being taken out, in a weird way, with human trafficking and this woman fighting back. The one reason why I love this movie so much, not only from the people who are passionate, I mean, from the director who you're going to meet here soon and all the actors and people who are part of it, they're really passionate about this. And one of our goals, we just submitted this to Cannes in hopes that the right people get to see this movie. The one thing that I hope comes out of this is a series, because January was Human Trafficking Awareness Month, if you did not know. And a lot of people that I asked, they didn't know that. And so where I see this movie not only giving women the energy to fight back in these situations, but it's really to educate. We talk a lot about sex trafficking, but labor trafficking, organ trafficking, servitude, these are all parts of trafficking that no one ever really knows about. And I'm hoping with this series, I'm hoping that in Cannes that people see the value of this movie, where we can start making a series of human trafficking, not to sensationalize the horrors with it, but really to educate people. So enough about me. I'm going to bring on my good friend, and honestly, I feel like he's family to me from the work that we've done, George Monteiro. Hey, George, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Victor. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you for this last second of coming on with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you even get into the movie making?
Well, I've been into photography and filmmaking all my life. I started off as a news cameraman working in Central and South America for NBC because I spoke Spanish and I loved, I had some experience shooting video in some small companies, and then I got on the news track for about 10 years and saw some things in this world that most people would rather not see. And so it's kind of inspired me since I've gotten back into into the civilized world, if you want to call it that, to let people know how things are not as nice as they are here in the United States and most places of the world. And in addition to that, I have a love for the ocean. I've made some underwater films. I'm a Christian. I've made some faith-based films. And this kind of combines all the things I love, but it has a message, I think, of hope, especially for women, because a lot of the movies you see are revenge movies or whatever, and some man comes in and saves the day. And women need to realize, and they need to hear it from me, they know it themselves, that they can take the reins and fight for their own rights, and they have and should continue to. And so that's what I wanted to stress in this film called Sisters of Vengeance, about a woman who was trafficked and now decides to get even with her traffickers. And she collects with her a group of other women that she's rescued off the streets, former prostitutes and former sex trafficking victims. And between them, they use their resources and their skills and their feminine wiles to take the fight back to the traffickers.
You know, what was the thing that, like, had you experienced or knew anything about human trafficking before this film came up? Like, what was the thing that educated you about human trafficking to do something in this space?
Well, I've seen some documentaries, and my friend and co-producer Patricia Delanois uh, asked me last year, could I come up with some sort of a teaser or idea for a film that she could uh, promote when she was in Cannes last year, and this was the kind of idea we came up with. I was trying to come up with a character that she could portray, and she's a beautiful woman. And I thought, what about seeing beneath the veil of what a beautiful, successful businesswoman might have gone through in her past years, in her early years. And the idea just sort of evolved, and we discussed it back and forth. And I started writing, and it just started to flow. I watched some documentaries about human trafficking, and the more I watched, the more I learned, the more just shocking and dramatic, the story developed.
So just to let everyone know how we came together, I had a friend that met Patricia at a women's event, and Patricia was talking about human trafficking, and her friend says, "Oh, you got to meet my friend Victor." So I remember like a year or so ago, I met you guys at Patricia's office when we first started talking about the movie. And I got to say, at that time, I really didn't, I don't know if I was grasping, but I know I was educating you guys a lot about some really detailed stuff about human trafficking. And I could see that you guys were very interested in making sure that you produced a movie that was, that could give some really good, realistic information. And about 8 or 9 months went by. And this is something that I honestly believe in life. When you're operating in your purpose and your passion in life, things are just going to come to you. One day I was walking into one of my favorite restaurants, and out of the blue, something popped in my mind. And I was like, man, I wonder what happened to those movie people. That same night, Patricia texted me, "Hey, Victor, what are you doing?" And we had a call. And she goes, I go, "Man, you won't believe this, but I was just thinking about you." This is so true. It happened just that way. And she explained that, COVID and a lot of things financially, that the initial person that was funding the movie had issues, and you guys had to revamp, the process and getting the movie made. And they asked me if I want to play a part. They asked me to play a part as the police chief, and they sent me the script. So this is the first time I read the complete script. And at the end, I'll be honest, it was emotional. This movie has some comedy parts, and people go, "How can you make a comedy about human trafficking?" Well, it's not the things that are happening to the victims. It's really the things that are happening to the bad guys that is really funny.
The perpetrators.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was like, at the end though, I was really moved, and it was emotional to me. And then we ended up meeting again, and I said, "Well, look, I can't play the part as the chief because I ain't gonna give the movie away." But anyway, I couldn't play the part as the chief. But as we develop, I've learned so much. Patricia, when I say we were a family, we learned so much about each other personally. Some of our own personal, battles in life, that we sat for lunch and we talked and we came together. And that's why I say you guys are like a family to me, because we shared so much personal stuff. And it was the first time that I've been on a set to understand what it takes to make a movie. And I always say thank you guys for allowing me to be a part of the family. But let's give them a little bit of what this looked like. Can you pull up? I know we forgot to do this, but I was wondering, first of all, can you pull up the website for the movie?
Yeah, hold on a second.
And then can we pull up the initial teaser that you used? I don't know if you have that. I know we forgot to tell you to bring that up.
Hold on a second. I may. Let me just check real quick.
So here's
the website.
Yeah, guys. If you could go to the website.
Sisters of Vengeance.
Yeah, and support this movie.
It's sistersofvengeance.com. Very simple to remember.
Yes.
and you can, if you like, if it's still up, I'm not sure. The teaser may be on there. I don't think it is right now, but
Well, I know
I'll get rid of
I
that.
have it. If we can't pull it up now, I'll give it to the guys later and they can edit it in. But
Right. Okay, fine.
it's such a when you see this teaser, it's so cool and it's really funny how this movie starts and where we go with it. But let's get to
Yeah.
the real exciting part.
Well, I want you to see. I want you to see the scene that you were involved in and instrumental in helping us coordinate and put together and get all the police oriented stuff accurate and so forth. So I'm going to pull up the rescue scene, which happens at the very end.
Look at that tactics.
An anonymous tip led to the rescue of a half-dozen children locked in a container destined for the sex trade in Europe.
Amid the joy of reuniting with their parents, it was discovered that our brave chief of police, Richard Davis, lost his life in the process of exposing the sex trafficking ring. In other news, it looks like it's going to be a sunny day today, and here to tell us more is Al Roker.
Okay, so that's just a little
Well, there you go, folks.
brief teaser.
My first movie debut. I don't know. I think it's an Oscar-winning role, but I have to tell
You saved the day.
I mean, it was great, man. All of a sudden, I'm a movie producer. I know a lot of the stuff that we use were from my law enforcement, uniforms that we had. But one of the pleasures also was educating, the law enforcement people proper entrance, firearm safety. I remember doing the firearm safety training for everyone because, what happened recently with Alex Baldwin, but we always want people to feel safe. And so that was a great part to
Yeah,
go
and by the
through.
way, they can see your stories on our Instagram, Sisters of Engine Instagram page, where you go through and show people the firearm safety and all that. So if anybody wants to look, they can go to the website and click on our Instagram, or just go to Instagram, just search for Sisters of Vengeance.
Yeah, it's a lot of good footage. So George, where are we now with the movie? I know March 10th was our deadline to submit the con. I know we got it in. In the bigger scheme of things, what do you want to happen from this?
Well, I'm kind of leaning towards your perspective. I'd love to see this be a series because you can't tell this whole story in one chunk, in one movie, in one episode. You can show one or two scenarios where a person is trafficked and how they're rescued and so forth. But to delve into the real depths of this industry, it's what is it, the second largest criminal enterprise in the world, beyond the drug trade, and it's something we just don't hear that much about. So I think it's a series myself.
Well, that's what experts say. Some experts say by 2030, human trafficking would be number one. I already think it's number one because, when we talk about sex trafficking, that's where most people see human trafficking. But when we don't, labor trafficking is 60 to 70% of all trafficking. And what I like to educate people on is, we all have cell phones. We all buy food. We all buy clothes. From those three products right by itself, we have a minimum of 40 to 60 slaves working for us, So how do you factor those numbers in when you look at, like everybody that has a cell phone don't take drugs. Everybody that buy food doesn't take drugs. So in my perspective, I know they haven't said it yet. It is the fastest growing crime, hands down. But in my opinion, George, I think it's number one. And it's just a matter of time. We're always behind the scales, when we try to use statistics, So at the end of the day, we're waiting for Cannes. If this movie is selected at Cannes, what would be the next steps of what we hope things to happen?
Well, my goal is to use the film as a sort of a springboard to get investors involved, either to make a feature film or to get a studio or a network involved in turning it into a series, like Vikings or like Game of Thrones. Obviously, not that high budget or so forth, but the idea of keeping this story alive and each week going into a different aspect of human trafficking and the sisters, these aren't Charlie's Angels type sisters. These are real down to earth women, businesswomen, moms, you know, girls out of high school, that band together to come together as a team. They don't maybe have all the skills in the world, but they have the heart,
Right.
and they can learn the skills. But the idea is that everybody can fight back at crime. They can fight back at injustice. A lot of times we believe, oh, it's just too big a problem. What can I do? Well, the idea behind Sisters of Vengeance is here's some, women who have day jobs, and yet they're fighting back at this crime and winning,
Yeah.
So that's my thought. If you empower people to realize they have power, bullies get away with the idea that people will believe that they don't have power, and that's how they gain their power.
Right.
But the truth is, when you fight back at a bully, the bully's going to go look for somebody else.
Exactly.
So if everybody fights back, well, then what do?
Yeah, it reminds me of a lot of times that when I'm with people and trying to educate them about the mindset of human trafficking, it's like I would ask, hey, we've all heard the term prostitution, the world's oldest profession. And my response is that is because we're the world's oldest customer, right? But we spend in a cultural way, we spend a time of demonizing the person that's selling and who could be a potential victim, than demonizing the people who created the market, right? So, by the way, farming is the world's oldest profession, but it's just the mindset of, giving people the courage to fight. I know, like, one of my concerns in this movie, because I know people that work in this space can be very sensitive, and we think like, oh, if you're having people fight back, women fight back in that space, they could get hurt. Well, my answer to that is they're already being hurt. It's
They're
like
already being hurt.
Yeah, and all kind of ways. And I'm like, I'd rather you go out. Like I tell my daughter, hey, go out fighting. Refuse to be taken, because you're being in a situation that you either wish you were dead, or where we know a lot of human trafficking victims try to commit suicide to escape their situation, or get involved with drugs. If the trafficker didn't put them on drugs, they're taking drugs just to be able to get through. Which is, every time women in that space, we call it sex. It's not sex. It's rape. It's rape. Yep. Every time they're in that space. And then when we talk about labor trafficking, people, that's like slavery. People not being able to get paid for the work that they do, working long hours, being treated like literally slaves, And so, George, any final thoughts that you may have in this space?
Well, I'm just like everybody else, I'm just one human being. But when I started developing this idea for the film, Patricia and Karen, Francis Lawrence, who would read my scripts and give me her thoughts. And as you develop a sort of a team around you, you realize that you're not just one person.
Right.
If you're going after a positive ideal, people will gather around you, or you'll gather around somebody else who has that ideal, and things will start to happen. So you just have to start down that road. We never would have met you had we not started down that road. And just a little side note that happened today. You sent me an email copied from Kathy Sledge. One of my dreams was including the song "We Are Family"
yes.
at the end of the movie,
yes.
And I didn't think we'd ever get the chance to use it or the rights to use it. And I tried pursuing the rights through the channels, and I knew it was going to be very expensive. But when I mentioned it to you, talk about people getting together with like minds, she said, "Oh, who wrote that song? Was that Kathy Sledge?" He says, she's a friend of mine. What are the chances?
Right.
There's no coincidences, like you say. So we're going to do something positive, and you're a central part of it, obviously. So I want to thank you for that.
No, George, you're right. And always, again, I'll say this forever is that when people are living in their passion and their purpose, you don't have to work hard. I mean, everything about us coming together and the movie coming together. And I'm going to tell a little story. There were times that you were like sad and out, like, this is never going to happen. And I remember sitting in the room like, George, snap out of it. This is going to happen,
Yeah, really.
It was just motivational because, we work together. If we could get people to believe, and we're stronger in numbers. And if we educate, and where I think this movie educate, we get to change culture. And if we could change culture and somebody hears this movie, responds to this movie, fight back because of this movie, if one person did it, it was all worth it. But I believe when this movie comes out, and I'm keeping it positive, they're going to like it at Cannes. Somebody's going to bite on it. And if they don't, we're going to keep making them. I hope we keep doing something to continue to educate people in this space because, again, in my opinion, it's the #1 crime in the world. And the more that we educate and change culture, the more people we get to, like, I don't want to say save, but they just don't get involved and they can see it coming and they could, educate their kids to not get involved and what to look for. So,
Yeah,
George,
definitely.
listen, man, go ahead.
I found that little teaser, 2-minute worth. You have?
Oh
time
yeah,
for it?
let's look at it because this is such a great
share
thing.
my screen with you for this.
Okay.
Because this is kind of where it started. It's evolved quite a ways from here, but this will give you an idea.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been 25 years since my last confession.
25 years, my child. That's a long time.
You have no idea.
Please, I'll be good, I promise.
How good?
Fasten your seatbelts, girls.
Good God, woman.
Should I stop?
Heavens no. What happened next?
You got family somewhere? You do now.
What about him?
Come back here, she's mine!
You don't need to worry about him anymore. Smile.
Holy Mary.
And the night was just getting started.
I thought you'd never get here. Mwah. He's here.
What is that? What are you doing?
Trust me, you will hardly miss it.
Miss what?
Oh, Harry, I'm so excited. I'm afraid I'm going to have an accident.
Oh, this will be no accident.
Who's that? Who's there?
Trust me, you'll hardly miss it.
Miss what? No! Oh, God. What did you do? Did you do what I think you did? You didn't. Did you?
You want to see a selfie?
Can this thing go any faster?
Smile. Guess he's gonna be late. So, isn't this where you tell me what my penance is going to be? You still in there?
Yes. I love that, man. That is such a great, you can see the comedy in there that, if anybody has concerns and everybody you tell it's a bit of a comedy, you can see that, the preacher's reaction, like, you did what? So, no, George, hey, man, again, it's been an honor meeting you. It's, thank you guys for letting me be part of the family.
Yeah.
And I just see us doing great things in the future. And, look, brother, thank you for coming on at this last second. And
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
all right, George, everybody, George Monteiro, please look him up. Amazing director.
SistersOfVengeance.com.
SistersOfVengeance.com.
Check out our website.
There you go, my brother. All righty. And
All
we're
right.
out of here.
God bless.